A royal event meant to celebrate unity has taken a shocking turn. Princess Charlotte, sweet and poised as ever, delivers a short speech. But what she says leaves the room in stunned silence. Her innocent words, spoken with honesty and heart, are now being seen as a powerful echo of her late grandmother, Princess Diana. Camilla's face reportedly froze. Insiders say she was blindsided, humiliated in front of the family and cameras. Was it a mistake or a message? Charlotte may be young, but her voice just reignited a royal storm, and Camilla's past isn't staying buried anymore. The DNA bombshell no one expected. It was supposed to be just another day in court. Tom Parker Bowles walked in calm, collected, expecting to address legal proceedings unrelated to his family background. But the moment the judge ordered the DNA results to be read aloud, everything changed. The courtroom turned into a pressure cooker of whispers, tension, and stunned silence. Then came the line that shattered it all. Andrew Parker Bowles is not Tom's biological father. Gasps filled the room. Tom's face went pale. Seconds later, he collapsed. Security and paramedics rushed to his side. The gallery erupted. The press scrambled to confirm the details as cameras captured the chaos. This wasn't speculation. This was science. This was fact. A secret buried for decades now laid bare in a courtroom. For those in attendance, it felt like the air had been sucked from the room. You could hear a pin drop right before the collapse, one witness later said. And then everything exploded. This revelation marked a turning point not just in Tom's life, but in royal history. Up until now, rumors about his paternity were seen as fringe gossip, whispered quietly among palace staff and ignored by the public. But with DNA evidence on record, this was no longer a private matter. It was a royal crisis, a living member of the extended royal family, now possibly linked by blood to the king himself. What began as whispers was now a headline with global reach. Within hours, news outlets around the world had picked it up. Was this the scandal that would bring down the carefully curated image of the royal family? The collapse wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. And the palace had no playbook for what came next. You could hear a pin drop right before the collapse, and then everything exploded. The courtroom had delivered the facts, but the fallout was only beginning. Because while the world reacted in shock, the man at the center of it all was facing an emotional storm unlike anything he had ever prepared for. Tom Parker Bowles. The moment Tom hit the ground, the royal illusion cracked. A man raised in privilege, always composed in public, now lay on the floor. His world shattered by one sentence. Paramedics confirmed it was a stress-induced fainting episode, but what came after was even more devastating. Tom reportedly wept in private, unable to process the truth. Those close to him say he felt like his entire identity had been ripped away in a single moment. Raised by Andrew Parker Bowles, Tom had always been proud of his roots. He followed his passion, built a name in journalism and culinary critique, and kept a relatively low profile despite his royal ties. But now, everything felt false. He's always thought he knew who he was, one friend shared. This flipped that completely. The collapse wasn't just about the paternity result. It was about the emotional trauma of realizing your whole life story might be based on a lie. Camilla's role in his upbringing only added more complexity. While he loved her deeply, insiders say his initial reaction included feelings of betrayal. Had she known? Had she lied? Had everyone around him chosen silence over truth? These were the questions echoing in Tom's mind as he isolated himself, pulling away from public life and the media. He canceled appearances, refused interviews, and vanished from social events where he was once a staple. This wasn't just royal gossip. It was real pain. And while the public debated timelines and conspiracies, Tom was grieving something harder to explain: the loss of certainty. He now had to confront who he really was. And whether or not the palace wanted to address it, the people weren't going to stop asking. He's always thought he knew who he was. This flipped that completely. And while Tom disappeared from the spotlight, the scandal grew louder. Because buried in the shock was an even deeper mystery. If Andrew wasn't the father, then who was? A secret hidden for decades. Long before this courtroom drama, royal insiders had whispered about Tom's paternity. The timing of his birth, the awkward silences when the subject came up, and the striking lack of resemblance to Andrew Parker. Bowles all fueled quiet suspicion, but no one dared ask the big question outright. In royal circles, some topics were simply off-limits. This was one of them. Even among palace aides, there were rumors. One former royal staffer recalled, "We all heard things over the years, but it wasn't our place to speak." Others noted the unusually close relationship between Camilla and Charles that continued even during her marriage to Andrew. Camilla's history was always complicated, but this new development brought those blurred lines into sharp focus. The palace had, over the years, masterfully buried anything that didn't serve the image of dignity and control. This included rewriting timelines and downplaying the emotional impact of Charles and Camilla's long-running affair. But the DNA results changed everything. Now, journalists and historians are revisiting old photos, archived letters, and tabloid clippings to find what was hiding in plain sight. The truth? It had always been there, just under the surface. But without proof, it was dismissed. Now that the proof exists, the palace can't ignore it any longer. And as the public learns just how many people may have helped keep the secret hidden, the scandal is no longer just about paternity. It's about cover-up, deception, and the cost of silence. It was always there, just under the surface. The proof finally pulled it up. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping part of this unraveling story isn't the secrecy. It's the question still left unanswered. If Andrew isn't the father, could the real one be wearing the crown? Is King Charles the father? Now that Andrew Parker Bowles has been ruled out by a court-verified DNA test, the most explosive theory rises back to the surface. Could King Charles be Tom Parker Bowles' real biological father? It's a question that's haunted royal watchers for decades, whispered in circles, hinted at in timelines, and buried by protocol. The affair between Charles and Camilla wasn't some fleeting moment. It was a decades-long entanglement, one that began in the early 1970s, long before Diana entered the picture, and continued even during both of their marriages. At the time of Tom's conception, Camilla and Charles were undeniably close, emotionally and, as the public now suspects, perhaps physically too. Historical records show that even during Camilla's marriage to Andrew, Charles maintained regular and often intimate contact. Old letters recovered by biographers hint at affection that went beyond friendship. In one note, Charles wrote about missing her laugh, her presence, things rarely said between platonic friends. These clues, once romantic footnotes, now feel like key evidence in a long-buried mystery. What makes the theory more compelling is the palace's silence. No denial, no clarification, no comment. And in the vacuum of information, speculation has become belief. Many now wonder, if Charles isn't Tom's father, why not say so? Why not end the scandal with a simple statement? The refusal to answer only deepens suspicion. The emotional weight of this possibility is massive. For Charles, it could mean his firstborn son, a child he never publicly claimed. For Camilla, it would mean hiding the truth not only from the public but from her own son. And for Tom, it would confirm the most surreal of all, that he's the unspoken offspring of a future queen and a reigning king. If it's not true, why won't they just deny it? Silence speaks louder than scandal. And while the world waits for answers, one person is spiraling behind palace walls. Because for Camilla, this scandal isn't just about royal timelines, it's about everything she's worked so hard to escape. Camilla's private reaction. Behind the grandeur of her crown and the velvet curtains of palace walls, Camilla is reportedly unraveling. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not after all the years she spent rebuilding her public image, earning royal favor and stepping into the role of queen consort. But now, the past she tried to bury has come crashing back, and it's threatening to erase everything. Insiders say she was furious when the DNA results were read in court. According to one palace source, Camilla was watching the news unfold live on television. Within minutes, she locked herself in her private study and refused to speak to anyone for hours. Staff members were ordered to clear her schedule indefinitely. One aide called it the most visibly shaken we've seen her since Diana's funeral. Her anger reportedly wasn't just about the result, it was about the humiliation. Camilla has fought for decades to move beyond her image as the other woman. She endured years of public hatred, endured tabloid shame, and weathered icy receptions at royal events. But through charity, work, loyalty to Charles, and Queen Elizabeth's eventual endorsement, she clawed her way back. Now, one DNA test threatens to undo it all and drag her name through the mud once again. Camilla's relationship with Tom has reportedly fractured as well. Sources close to the family say she reached out in desperation, writing him a private handwritten letter begging for understanding and time. But Tom, heartbroken and disoriented, is said to have left her message unanswered. Trust, once broken by blood, is not easily restored, especially when the truth was hidden for so long. At the heart of it all, Camilla is alone. Charles is reportedly advising silence. The palace is in damage control, and the woman once accused of breaking a royal marriage now faces a deeper fear, losing both her son and her crown. She spent years rebuilding herself, and now it's all collapsing at once. And yet, to understand how we got here, this emotional spiral, this family fracture, we must go back even further, back to the very beginning, to the love triangle that rewrote history. Charles, Camilla, and Diana. It began like a classic royal romance, a shy young kindergarten teacher named Diana Spencer marrying the future King of England. But just beyond the fairy tale, another story was already unfolding, one far more complicated, intimate, and destructive. Long before Diana ever walked down the aisle, Charles was in love with Camilla. Their relationship began in the early 1970s, but palace advisors deemed her unsuitable as a royal bride. She was seen as too experienced, too worldly, and not aristocratic enough for a future queen. So Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles, and Charles moved on, or so it seemed. But Charles never truly let go. Even after marrying Diana in 1981, his emotional loyalty remained with Camilla. Diana herself famously said she felt Camilla's presence from the very start. In a moment of heartbreak, she once confessed, "I knew something was wrong when I found the bracelet." That bracelet, engraved with F and G, short for their nicknames Fred and Gladys, was meant for Camilla, just days before the royal wedding. Throughout her marriage, Diana endured emotional neglect, isolation, and betrayal. And though she tried to keep the family together, raising William and Harry with care, she knew, deep down, that she was always fighting a losing battle. The real love story wasn't hers. It was Charles and Camilla's, and it never truly ended. This background is crucial, because if Tom Parker Bowles was conceived during this period, then it's not just a modern scandal. It's a historic unraveling of everything the monarchy tried to portray during the 1980s and 90s. It means the third person in the marriage wasn't just emotional. He may have been biological. There were 3 of us in this marriage, and now we're finding out how true that really was. Transition. And what came next wasn't just whispers and affairs. It was public disgrace, secret recordings, and the most humiliating scandal the monarchy had ever faced. Camilla Gate and the public humiliation of a princess. If there was ever a moment when the royal family lost control of the narrative, it was 1993. A private, late-night phone call between Prince Charles and Camilla was leaked to the press, and what it revealed was intimate, embarrassing, and unforgettable. Nicknamed Camilla Gate, the transcript shocked the nation and humiliated the monarchy. In the call, Charles made several sexually explicit remarks that left no room for interpretation. The affair wasn't just emotional. It was deep, active, and undeniable. "I'll just live inside your trousers or something," Charles famously joked. The clip became international headline fodder and tabloid gold. But for Diana, it was a knife through the heart. The world now had proof of the betrayal she'd long hinted at. The monarchy scrambled to repair the damage. Public relations teams worked overtime, urging people to forgive and forget. But the damage to Charles and Camilla's reputation was severe. Camilla, in particular, became the most hated woman in Britain. Protesters held signs outside royal events. Newspaper cartoons mocked her relentlessly. She was no longer just the other woman. She was now a scandal with a name and a voice. Diana remained largely silent, at least publicly, until 1995. Her revenge wouldn't be loud at first, but it would be devastating. They weren't just whispers anymore. The whole world was listening. And when Diana did speak, she didn't just break the silence. She broke the palace's grip on the story. Her words, calm and brave, became the anthem for a generation betrayed. Diana's BBC interview. In November 1995, Diana sat down with journalist Martin Bashir in what would become one of the most iconic royal interviews in history. What she revealed wasn't just personal, it was revolutionary. For the first time, a royal tore down the facade and showed the pain behind the palace gates. Diana spoke about her struggles with bulimia, the crushing pressure of royal life, and her feelings of isolation. But it was her now legendary line that stunned the world. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." With one sentence, she confirmed what millions suspected. Charles and Camilla's affair wasn't just real, it had haunted her entire life. The public reacted with compassion and fury. Compassion for Diana, for the vulnerability and bravery it took to speak, and fury toward Charles and Camilla, for the deceit, the affair, and the emotional destruction left in their wake. The monarchy had always demanded silence, but Diana's voice pierced through it all. She became more than just a princess. She became a symbol of truth, vulnerability, and strength. Camilla, already reeling from Camillagate, was now a national villain. Any attempt she made to re-enter public life was met with boos and backlash. Charles, too, saw his approval ratings plummet. For a brief moment, the monarchy seemed to teeter on collapse. That interview didn't just change the public's view of Diana. It reshaped how people saw the institution itself. The palace wasn't just a home. It was a fortress of secrecy, power, and quiet cruelty. Diana had blown open the gates, and the echoes of that interview are still felt today. It wasn't just an interview, it was a reckoning. But then, as public support rallied behind Diana, tragedy struck, and the woman who had finally spoken her truth would never get the chance to see what came next. Diana's death and the blame that followed. August 31st, 1997. Paris. A car crash in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel claimed the life of Princess Diana, along with her partner Dodi Fayed and driver Henri Paul. The news spread like wildfire, leaving a stunned world gasping for answers and someone to blame. Within hours, fingers pointed everywhere. At the paparazzi who chased the car, at the driver who was reportedly under the influence. But many blamed the royal family itself, particularly Charles and Camilla. The narrative that had taken root since Diana's BBC interview now took a darker turn. That Diana had been emotionally destroyed by palace cruelty and betrayal, and now she was gone. The public grief was unprecedented. Mourners flooded the gates of Kensington Palace with flowers, cards, and candles. Millions wept in the streets. And yet, the royal family remained silent for days. Their lack of visible emotion was seen as cold, even inhuman. Camilla was kept entirely out of sight, but whispers of her involvement never left public discourse. Some believed Diana had been pushed too far, that the emotional pain caused by the affair, by Camilla's continued presence in Charles's life, had contributed to her downward spiral. Conspiracies about the crash surged, some outlandish, others plausible. But one theme remained consistent. Diana was taken too soon, and the monarchy never properly protected her. Camilla, once again, became untouchable in the worst way. Any effort to resurface publicly was met with fury. Her name was synonymous with scandal, betrayal, and the quiet pain of a woman who never stood a chance against a crown. And for Charles, his road to kingship was now permanently shadowed by the memory of the woman he didn't choose, and the one he did. Diana didn't just die. She left behind a legacy and a reckoning the monarchy is still facing. And though time passed and Camilla slowly re-emerged, her image forever tainted, there was still one story left to unfold, a slow, quiet climb from the ashes. But as we'll see next, that climb may have come just in time for the fall. Camilla's reputation. For years, Camilla Parker Bowles walked the tightrope between past scandal and royal redemption. From being labeled the most hated woman in Britain to standing proudly as Queen Consort beside King Charles, her journey was nothing short of calculated survival. Through steady charity work, media appearances, and a carefully curated image, she softened public perception. Even Queen Elizabeth II, once reportedly cold toward her, offered support near the end of her reign, a symbolic blessing that paved the way for Camilla to step fully into royal power. But the DNA scandal surrounding Tom Parker Bowles has reignited everything Camilla tried to bury. Her past isn't just returning, it's roaring back with new fire. Critics now question the foundation of her role in the monarchy. If she kept such a life-altering secret from the public, from the palace, and from her own son, what else has been hidden? The public trust she worked decades to build is quickly dissolving in a matter of weeks. Online sentiment has flipped. Where once there were articles praising her elegance and discretion, there are now viral threads, commentaries, and opinion pieces demanding answers. Protesters outside events hold signs reading, "Truth before titles." Royal historians begin to question whether her position as Queen Consort should be re-evaluated in light of this revelation. And inside the palace, whispers grow louder. Some insiders reportedly fear that Camilla's presence now poses a credibility risk to the monarchy itself. Camilla, once a symbol of royal resilience, now faces a storm of public judgment she may not survive unscathed. The crown she finally earned could now become her heaviest burden. She waited decades for the crown, but one test might take it all away. And while Camilla faces public scrutiny, another storm brews behind the palace doors. Because King Charles's legacy isn't just about love anymore. It's about truth, power, and how long he can hold on under pressure. The impact on King Charles's reign. King Charles waited longer than any monarch in British history to ascend the throne. For decades, he stood in the shadow of Queen Elizabeth, enduring criticism, scandal, and speculation. When he finally took the crown, many hoped it would signal a more modern, measured monarchy. But now, with the DNA results casting long shadows, his entire legacy is under threat. If Tom Parker Bowles is indeed his biological son, it raises not only personal questions, but constitutional ones. It reopens the timeline of his relationship with Camilla, suggesting their affair was deeper, earlier, and more deceptive than the public was told. The official palace narrative, one carefully guarded, begins to crumble. If Charles fathered a child while both were married to others, it damages the moral foundation that's expected of the sovereign. Critics are calling this a legitimacy crisis. The idea of moral leadership, already fragile in a modern age, now feels hollow. Public trust in Charles, already far from the universal reverence enjoyed by his mother, went being tested in real time. And with each day of palace silence, suspicion only grows. Why hasn't Charles addressed it? Why the tight-lipped strategy? In a world of transparency and accountability, silence looks more like guilt than grace. What's worse, this scandal has reignited comparisons to Diana. Many believe this situation proves what Diana hinted at all along, that she was never the chosen one, just a public necessity. If Charles was capable of keeping a secret like this, what else was he capable of hiding? The crown is no longer the question. The man wearing it is. And as Charles remains silent and Camilla retreats, the public turns to what they've always trusted more than press releases: emotion, legacy, and memory. And that's where Diana wins. Again. Camilla versus Diana. The comparison never truly died, but now it's back with vengeance. As Camilla faces backlash over the DNA revelations, Diana's image is rising stronger than ever, not just as a beloved princess, but as the royal truth-teller whose words were prophetic. Diana warned the world. She spoke of betrayal, emotional pain, and being crowded out of her own marriage. And now, decades later, people are realizing just how accurate her warnings were. Social media has reignited the conversation. Clips from her BBC interview are circulating again, shared by millions, with captions like, "She knew." Photos of Diana are once again appearing in candlelight vigils, tribute posts, and viral timelines. Camilla, meanwhile, is facing renewed vilification. Younger generations, who once gave her a chance, are now turning cold. They see her not as a dignified queen, but as a symbol of privilege, protected by silence. The palace's continued refusal to address the DNA situation only deepens the divide. This isn't just a PR problem, it's a cultural reckoning. Two women, one silenced, the other crowned, are now the faces of competing royal narratives. And the public is choosing sides, loudly and emotionally. In every debate, every headline, and every hashtag, it's clear: Diana is still the people's princess, and Camilla is not. Diana's silence was forced. Camilla's silence is strategic. The public knows the difference. But beyond public opinion, there's one final question that could reshape the monarchy forever. Because, at its heart, this isn't just a scandal. It's a family war with no clear end. What happens now? With the monarchy under siege from within and without, the question now isn't just what happened, it's what happens next. Can the crown survive another generation burdened by secrets? Can Camilla hold her title with a public that no longer trusts her? Can Charles navigate this storm without sacrificing his moral authority? Camilla is reportedly in crisis talks with senior aides. Some insiders claim she's considering a quiet exit from public life. Not a resignation, but a disappearance. Charles, on the other hand, remains silent. No statements, no appearances addressing the scandal. Just silence and a tightening of the palace gates. Tom Parker Bowles, still reeling from his emotional collapse, is said to be taking time away from London entirely. Friends say he's considering a tell-all memoir or even a public interview to set the record straight. If he does speak and confirms what many suspect, the fallout could be irreversible. And then there's William and Harry. William, the future king, is reportedly furious and deeply conflicted. His loyalty to Diana is ironclad, and Camilla's deception, if confirmed, would only worsen the rift. Harry, meanwhile, has long been outspoken in blaming Camilla for Diana's pain. Could this scandal bring the brothers together, or break them apart for good? One thing is clear: this DNA test was more than just a paternity result. It was a trigger, a truth bomb, a historical twist that could alter the monarchy's future. Because secrets may hold power, but the truth always finds a way to rise. One DNA test didn't just reveal a father, it revealed the monarchy's greatest fear. Now, whispers are growing louder. Did Princess Charlotte speak from the heart, or from a legacy long in the making? One thing is clear: her words have reopened wounds the palace tried to heal. Camilla is rattled. William and Kate are reportedly standing by their daughter. And the public? They're hailing Charlotte as Diana's granddaughter in every sense, bold, graceful, and unafraid to speak the truth. The monarchy finds itself once again divided by history emotion, and memory. And if this moment was a spark, the fire it's lit may burn far deeper than anyone in the palace expected.